Hello and welcome to your weekly tarot forecast for the week of June 23rd to June 29th. I'm Michelle Shea Walker, and this is your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. If you are a paid subscriber or if you tipped your reader this week, be sure to stick around until the end to see if you won the personalized reading. First of all, where did June go? How are we already at the end of June? I feel like certain months this year have just kind of flown by and certain months have been crept by. So I don't know where this month went. I'm super happy to be in Cancer season, but time is moving quickly. So it is kind of that slingshot into our goals, our dreams. And this week in particular is going to be potentially fruitful if you use the energy right, especially if you have Cancer in a prominent placement in your chart, but really for everyone. So I'm going to go into the cards and the astrology in just a moment, but I do want to kind of preface that there are things happening in the world right now, and they have a lot to do with the fact that Neptune is in Aries and Pluto is in Aquarius. And I want to just remind you that both of these sign combinations with planets have in the past indicated sort of conflict between cultures, countries, parts of countries, and it is ideally a situation that we are moving up a spiral staircase. The reason that or in my opinion, the best part about the fact the astrology repeats every so many years is that we are able to see something from a higher perspective. So we come back to a similar situation, but hopefully rather than going in a loop and getting stuck there, we're going up a spiral staircase and we can look at the same view, but from a higher level. And that's ideally what's happening if you are stressed about what's happening in the world right now. And I've got other thoughts, but I think they're going to come up throughout the reading. So if that's something that's kind of in your mind and kind of blocking your energy this week, trust that even when I'm giving personalized advice this week, it's going to be stuff that is going to be a remedy to that stress and that energy that's happening at the moment. So I just want to honor that as we move into this week, but also say that this week does hold a lot of optimism. So again, the micro always affects the macro, even if it doesn't feel like it can possibly do so. So if you are worried about the world stage, focus on what you can shift and change and grow within yourself that is a mirror back to what needs to shift and change and grow in the outside world. And I promise you, the law of attraction, the energy will line up. It just may not be in the way that you think. It may not be in the timeline that you think, but you are doing good work by focusing on your own healing, even when it seems like there's bigger things in the world to focus on. Because if we all ignored our own healing and tried to focus on the rest of the world, we're just a bunch of unhealed people walking around making a bigger mess. So just keep that in mind and know that I do honor this. I know that I'm a very optimistic reader, but that doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention to the things that are causing us emotional upheaval. So with that in mind, we are going to move into this week, and I want to really ramp you up for some potential excitement and change and shifts. We have Jupiter Cazimi happening in the middle of the week, and that is in Cancer, which is a beautiful like exaltation of that sign, of that planet. So we are going to be having a potential burst of luck, especially in the area of your chart that Cancer falls. So if you know your rising sign, count up whatever house Cancer is, figure out what it is that's going to dictate and rule in your life. And then if you are looking for even more power in that area of your life, the next day we have a new moon in Cancer, which is prime energy for manifestations. So we get a little burst of luck, and then we get to move into like wishing for the things that we want to use that luck for. And it's just a really good week. Mercury goes into Leo as well, which I'll talk about more when we get to that. But I like that energy because I'm a Mercury Leo. It's a good week for being seen and hopeful and optimistic and wishing for the best. So let's dive in. First up, on Monday, June 23rd, we have Sun square Neptune. So squares are always a little more difficult. I think we are coming off of this weekend energy and having this sort of opposition of who we identify as and what we dream for ourselves or for the world. And this doesn't mean that either of those things is wrong. It just means that on this particular day, those two things are kind of feeling like they're clashing. So you might have a bit of an identity crisis. You might have a bit of a crisis of your dreams. And while it doesn't always mean that these things are wrong and they're going to constantly be in opposition, it is a good day to reflect upon what it is that you've been identifying yourself as and what it is that your goals and your dreams are. Because Neptune is that very swimmy, Piscean, I'm going to just daydream about things. And then your sense of self is kind of in conflict with that. So this is kind of echoing back to a couple readings from this month where we're talking about redefining who we are and who our goals are based on who we authentically are rather than who the outside world told us that we should be. And the card of the day kind of reflects that because it is the Seven of Swords. And the Seven of Swords is about secrets that potentially need to be revealed. And the pop culture reference, because if you're new here, I tend to have my guides, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, communicate to me in pop culture quotes, song lyrics, movie quotes, things like that. And the second that this card flipped over, I got The Big Lebowski. New shit has come to light, man. So there's definitely new shit coming to light on Monday. And that square happens in the wee morning hours Central Standard Time. So 3:28 a.m. Central Time in the United States. So it is an earlier morning shift with that. And then I feel like that might drudge up some new truths that we want to be revealed, new shit that we want to come to light. And I will say this does feel like this could also be reflected on the global stage. So might be I'm never a big fan of being glued to the news cycle, but it might be a day that you check in occasionally on what's happening in the news because there could be some new shit that's coming to light. And it's in the optimism of the rest of the week, I would like to assume that it's going to be shit that's heading towards a productive and optimistic perspective. But it doesn't always look that way right away. Sometimes we got to dredge up the bad stuff in order to get to the good stuff. So just keep all of that in mind. And again, we always look at the macro or look at the micro, look at our own individual experience. So there's a siren going on outside, which definitely indicates to me that this is something that someone needs to pay attention to. There's a feeling that there's a secret that either you weren't even aware of that comes to light about yourself and about your dreams and about the direction that you want to be going, or there's something that you have been downplaying, pushing down, putting in a closet that is ready to come to light, that it's going to help you get out of that sort of like opposition feeling of the Sun square Neptune. So again, this does feel like it's like there's something that you've been identifying as that's diametrically opposed to your dreams and your life purpose and where you want to go and where you're going to feel the most aligned. And that needs to come out. Either you need to come out as not being authentic in a certain area of your life, or you need to come clean about something that you've known but you haven't let the outside world see, because the outside world can't hand you the opportunities that you are most aligned with if you're not being your authentic self to that outside world. Nobody knows. Let's just do something really frivolous. If you love the color pink and nothing in your life reflects the color pink, nobody knows to get you things in the color pink, which I can tell you, if you have pink hair and your apartment has mostly pink in it, people know to like code you in their calendar as pink and give you something pink as a gift. So this is your sign that if there's been something about yourself that you've kind of been keeping in a closet somewhere, it might be time to go ahead and let that come to light, because you're going to have your outside experience reflect your authentic self that much more and that much easier when the outside world sees who you truly are. That's Monday. Tuesday, we get our glorious Jupiter Cazimi. So if you don't know, Jupiter Cazimi, or a Cazimi of any planet, is when that planet lines up in conjunct directly with the sun. And basically what that does energetically is it's if the sun is shining a big old spotlight on whatever that planet is currently ruling, doing, existing as. Jupiter is known as the planet of luck and expansion. So I always like to put expansion in there because luck we think of as feeling really nice and wonderful and blissful and supportive. And expansion is usually leading towards that feeling, but doesn't always initially feel like that. So know that this could come through in one of two ways. It could come through as something that feels very lucky and very sort of like, that win a contest or something really beautiful happens and kind of feels like it just drops in on your lap and it's kind of effortless. Or it could be about expansion, which means that you might be confronted with a situation that feels uncomfortable, but that's going to cause you to expand and cause you to draw in more luck long term. So again, if you do know your rising sign, count that as house 1 and count around a zodiac wheel and figure out what number Cancer is. That will tell you what house this Jupiter Cazimi is happening in and what area of your life specifically is going to be called to expand or is going to get a little dose of luck. Also, if you have anything in your chart that lines up with Cancer, if you have any planets in that area, the planets that rule the things that those planets rule could get a little bit of expansion or luck. So for instance, I'm a Cancer sun sign. So my sense of identity self in the world could expand and get a little light shine on it and be something that I'm kind of challenged to grow in. But it's also in my house of health and wellness. So I've already been seeing the shifts pre-Cancer season in my health and wellness sector. I've been doing a lot more fitness. I reestablished my health coaching offering, integrating my energy healing and my yoga knowledge. So if anybody's interested in that, that's something that you can find on my website. But everything in my world in the couple of weeks, or actually a month and a half leading up to Cancer season, has already been effortlessly shifting towards more about wellness of my daily routines and my physical body, but then by nature of that, also my energetic body and my mental health. So that's all of the stuff that I personally am going through because Cancer is in my 6th house. So if you're an Aquarius rising, that's also in your 6th house. But that's how we're going to translate this energy is, do I have any planets in Cancer? What do they rule? Do I, or what? You are going to have Cancer in some house, no matter whether you have planets there or not. But what house is Cancer in? And again, if you don't know your rising sign, I'm sorry, it's not going to be an exact science to figure out like what house you're in. You can kind of fudge it by just using your sun sign as house 1 and count around. It's not exactly the same thing. So I would honestly just look at your chart and kind of feel into what's been shifting in your life and maybe what shifts in your life around Cancer season almost every year. And that might be able to give you a little hint of where this is falling in your life. But regardless, just think of it as a time to expand and just watch the opportunities to expand that come into your life. With that in mind, our card is the 4 of Pentacles reversed, which I love for this energy because upright, the 4 of Pentacles is kind of a miserly energy. It's kind of that Scrooge hoarding all of the gold and like not giving anything to anyone else and also being a little scared to lose things. This is really an energy of grasping and clinging to things out of fear. If we flip it upside down, a couple of different ways to interpret this, but the way that it immediately came through for me is we're being called to release our grip on the things that we've been clinging to for safety. So this also could be echoing from Monday's energy of bringing something that you've been keeping secret out into the world. That could be like a security blanket that you've been clinging to of like knowing that the world doesn't know this thing about you and now you're going to bring it out into the open. But this is like a releasing of something that we've been holding way too tightly to. So if that's an abundance thing, because Pentacles do kind of indicate abundance a lot of times and career stuff, a lot of times what will happen is if we are really feeling restricted in our abundance and our financial abundance, we can have a tendency to really tighten the purse strings and not spend any money and be really super restrictive and really stressed out about that energy. And to a certain extent, obviously, if you don't have a lot of money coming in, you do want to be mindful of a budget. But energetically, if you are not letting any money go out, then you are not letting enough space at the other side of the other end of the tube, as Ted Danza would Danza? Yes. No, not Ted Danza. Ted Danson would say. There's a great interview with him at one point where he talks about his mindset of abundance, that it's a tube and money flows in and money flows out. But if you stop money flowing out, money can't flow in. You get a limited amount of money that flows in. Whereas if you only have money flowing out and you don't have money flowing in, you're eventually going to empty the tube. So it's about that balance. But this energy tells me that there's something in your life. It may not be financial, but again, Pentacles does indicate finances for a lot of us, but there's something that you've been clinging too tightly to. It also could be a sense of security in a certain relationship. There could be an instance of being clingier in your romantic relationships or even your friendships, and being called to kind of like loosen that grip. That idea of like, if you hold the butterfly too tightly, you crush it. If you just let your palm rest open, you can both coexist in a way that's peaceful and unharmful to both of you. So if this is a person that you've been clinging to, think of that metaphor. So money is a tube, people are butterflies. Let's keep everything flowing in a way that's healthy and balanced for everyone involved. So again, that is under the Jupiter Cazimi. We do have a Mercury square Chiron in the wee morning hours of Tuesday as well. So late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, there might be a bit of a conflict with your wounded healer and your communication. But for most of us, we're going to be asleep. I'm not too worried about it. And that dose of luck comes in just like 8 hours later. And 10:16 a.m. is when Jupiter Cazimi happens. So just know that Monday into Monday night might feel a little rougher. And then Tuesday comes with this burst of expansion and luck. But you have to be willing to hold things loosely. Moving into Wednesday, we have our Cancer new moon. So as I mentioned, we got the Cancer Jupiter Cazimi, and then right away Cancer new moon, which I think is really fortuitous because we have the luck and expansion coming out on Tuesday, lighting up that area of our life. And then the new moon is always primed energy for a 6-month expansion or 6-month expansion. I said that on accident, but it wasn't an accident. 6-month manifestation timeline. So I think that our manifestations under the Cancer new moon should be about our expansion. How can you have your dreams and your goals be even bigger than you thought were possible? If you had a set amount of income that you would like to make for yourself, can you double that? Like, how big can you make your vision of your future? And like, let yourself steep in that energy. Manifestation 101, you always figure out what it is that you want and then act as if it's already happened. So you write out a script as if you're in that present moment in the future and all of these things have come true. You embody the energy of being in this place, of just being the person that was capable of achieving all the things that you thought that you wanted to achieve. Because sometimes when we're trying to manifest things, we're seeing it as like someone else almost, like that other person that is maybe a person that we idolize, that we're trying to become or whatever. And if we're not seeing it as a element of ourselves, it's hard to call that energy in because we think that it's someone else's prize and someone else's goal and someone else's accomplishment, whereas we are just as capable of that as well. But you have to find that part of yourself and embody that character for a while. The energy of the card is Temperance. So Temperance is about making the impossible seem possible. So this is really beautiful energy for that expansion, manifestation, and embodying a character that maybe feels a little bit bigger than you thought possible, because this is kind of like the alchemy card, or like it's really indicated in like 1 foot on water, 1 foot on land, that this little angel has going on here, in that you exist in both worlds. You exist in the present and you also exist in the future. And you also are able to balance that sense of dreamy, watery manifestation energy and grounded action in the real world. And it's also, again, I like to compare this to that I don't know how she does it phraseology, in that it does seem when the Temperance card comes up and it's in a really balanced alignment with who you are and what you're doing at that moment, the outside world could look in at what you're doing and think that you're just magical, that you're making absolutely impossible things seem possible, that all of your dreams are coming to true, and you make it seem effortless. And of course, because we have 1 foot on land, we know that there is effort that's put into it, but there's also a lot of effortless magic and flow with the 1 foot in water. So again, a great tip for this is when you're working with your manifestations, not only do you embody the energy of that future, but after you embody that energy of the future, you work backwards. And a great way to do this is actually to imagine that you are interviewing your future self. And you're saying, like, wow, it's really cool that you became the top earner in your field and that you're now an expert that people want to come to, and you've been featured in all these magazines, and you, whatever your dream is. And you can be the interviewee talking to yourself and being like, how did you do it? Where did you get started? And you can start to let that future version of you answer those questions. And then your job as present you is to put those actions into play now so that you can have those manifestations even sooner. So that's your Cancer New Moon Manifestation 101 course. And we're going to dive into Thursday, which the astrology is Mercury into Leo. So I'm a natal Mercury Leo. That means that that's where it is in my birth chart. And that just means that my communication is very theatrical. And so Mercury in Leo is about being very theatrical and also very, honestly, it might be where I get my optimism, because Leo is a very complementary energy. If you know any Leo suns or risings in your life, or really anywhere in their chart, Mercury as well, probably, they get a lot of flack in the zodiac for being selfish or self-focused or self-centered, but they're also very other people centered. Like, they want compliments, but they also want to shower you with compliments. So because I have a Mercury in Leo, and that kind of is my love language, that is an area that I relate to a lot of Leo suns with. So like, I think a lot of times I'll read the flack that Leos get and I don't get it. I don't understand it, because I'm like, that's what I love about the Leos in my life. So those of you that are Leos in my life watching, thank you for being you. And this is very much an energy of letting yourself communicate with love, and communicate with compliments, and communicate with flair. So again, Leo, I like to think of Madonna's a lot of Leo in her chart. So like, think of just like even early Madonna, where it's just like absolutely flamboyant, theatrical, like there to be seen, is what Mercury is feeling like. And Mercury is the pleasant planet of communication. So as Mercury is in Leo, you might find that communication gets a little more stylized and front and center and in the spotlight. And what do I mean by that? On the darker end of things, it could mean that people in the public eye could really get really showboaty with their communication style. People could get a little used car salesman about the way that they're like talking about things, making things seem more grandiose than they actually are. But on the good side of things, it can be about talking up what you love, whether it be talking up a project that you're working on that you really love. It's a really great energy for pitching something to someone, because you're going to be in this place of like wanting to compliment everything around you, and also wanting to compliment your project, like wanting to talk well about it. And then it could be an energy of being able to talk about the things that you want to talk about in the world, whether they be hard issues or soft issues, in a way that feels palatable, because it does have this element of like theatrics to it and entertainment to it. If you are someone that does words and communication for your living, it's a really good time to kind of work on those like pet projects that you have. However, our card, it's the Devil card. So I do want to kind of preface this Mercury into Leo energy, which also has a couple sextiles happening early in the morning, but we're going to focus on Mercury and Leo, with the idea that the Devil can also be showy and theatrical and complimentary. So this isn't to get you too hung up on the cons or the potential bad here, but to recognize that because the energy of Mercury and Leo is about making things seem grandiose, you do want to be mindful in your business connections and in your relationships that some people may be presenting themselves in a way that is not quite grounded in who they actually are. you're getting sort of that. It could be love bombing, or it could just be an inauthentic front. This doesn't feel like it's coming from a really sinister place. It feels like it's coming from a place of insecurity. It feels like, especially with our micro, like our interpersonal life, if there is a business deal that comes through that seems too good to be true, it's not because they're like consciously trying to deceive you and like hook you into something with a lie. It's that they're overcompensating for some sort of flaw in the system or insecurity that they're trying to cover up with this like grandiose pitch. It feels kind of like a corporate energy of like having all these like catchphrases and like mantras and mottos that don't necessarily align with the actually energy of the day to day. Or in your interpersonal relationships, it could be that you get in a relationship with someone that up front seems like they got all their shit together, they're doing really well, they're very healthy, they're in alignment. And then like when you get underneath the surface, you realize that all is not quite as what it seems. So be mindful before you enter into binding contracts underneath this Mercury and Leo energy. Like make sure you see what's underneath the facade before you really hitch your wagon to something. But also be caring, because it is Cancer season as well. And like recognize that these people aren't evil, that they are coming from a place of insecurity. So like, again, especially in our micro and our interpersonal relationships, don't write someone off as just the devil because they're being sort of putting up this facade or putting up this false advertisement. Because first of all, it's probably not an entirely false advertisement. Parts of it are true. They wouldn't be able to put it up there, but they are coming from a place that needs healing. And that's not necessarily your job to heal them, but like be gentle, be kind. Don't like shame them for what's happening. Like don't get yourself tangled up in a situation that you don't need to be tangled up in, but don't feel like you need to go on the internet and like just slam them and get them canceled or whatever. Like there's very few of us. I mean, honestly, I don't think cancel culture at any degree is good or healthy or helping anyone. But definitely on like a smaller scale interpersonal level, there are very few occurrences in which someone deserves to be canceled. We all deserve to have mistakes and to hopefully learn from them. And like the only version of cancel that I would accept is if you cancel them from your personal life. If you've like given someone a couple chances and they've failed to show up for you in the way that they need to, then you can go and disconnect contact from them. But you don't need to necessarily like do a slam campaign. That's not slander. You don't need to like engage in slander, is what I'm doing with this. So be kind, but beware. Whew, that was some big Mercury and Leo energy. Also, it's like 90 degrees, over 90 degrees today, and I made my air conditioner less intense, but it is going to occasionally kick on, and I'm still melting. So lots of energy flowing through today. And we have Friday the 27th coming through next, and it doesn't have a major, like big, powerful astrology like the last 3 days have. But we do have Venus sextile the North Node in the earlier morning hours, and then Mercury trine Saturn in the evening hours. So Venus sextile the North Node, the planet of love and beauty and creativity, is aligning with our life's purpose. And sextiles are a supportive little like energy of like coming together, kiss of luck, lots of things that I use to describe this. But it's essentially saying that there might be actually a little trickling of like summer romance energy is what I'm getting from this. And that's just coming up here in this moment. So I believe that it's probably true for someone listening. And again, it's in the wee morning hours, so I don't think it's necessarily at 4:57 a.m. Central Standard Time you're going to meet someone. There might even be something that's already been kind of coming through. But the Venus sextile North Node, it is this element of like your life purpose can align with love. Because I think sometimes we get in a place where we feel like it's one or the other. And this could be a personal relationship love that we're talking about, or it could be a passion for your life purpose that we're talking about. So it could go either way. And we're talking about basically just letting it be an option, not shutting ourselves down from the possibility that those two things can go together, is what I have to say about that. In the evening hours, Mercury trines Saturn. Mercury, planet of communications, lining up with our sort of life lessons, school marm energy of Saturn. So it might be a good day to review, communicate, write down, talk in therapy, or even do a piece of writing about a life lesson that you've learned. So if you do communicate for your living and you want to share a story about a life lesson, it's a good day to work on that. If you are just kind of sorting through some life lessons, it could be a good day to like journal it out and reflect upon those things, or to talk to someone, a coach, a therapist, someone like that you can kind of embody this communication about it. And again, it's the evening hours. It's 10:52 p.m. You're probably not gonna have a therapy session at that time. So either earlier in that day or the next day would be a good time to talk it out. But again, you can also do that in the confines of a journal. We're just trying to do something with writing or talking that is reflecting upon life's lessons thus far and what we're continuing to learn, because we're never done learning. The card for the day also supports an element of writing for some people, especially if you do consider that your life's purpose. The Chariot card is self-propelled action forward. So it could be that this is more of a solo thing. It may not be like a therapist or coach. It might be you are journaling for yourself or writing a piece for the outside world. I see the Chariot also in a lot of my readings for myself about writing and about being propelled forward, because the career and the life of a writer is a lot of self-propelled action. You have to be very self-motivated. So if you are not a writer, this still is reflected in that. Like, you have to propel yourself forward toward your dreams because you are the engine on this motorcycle. There's an engine on a motorcycle. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you are being your best cheerleader, being your best motivator, being your best advocate, and then also recognizing that there's help along the way as well. So like, I love that we have these two sphinxes that are traditionally, and like the more traditional card, in front of an actual chariot pulling it forward. But it's like, you do have help pulling yourself forward, but you're still in the driver's seat. You're still in charge. So that's an interesting energy for Friday. I feel like for the writers amongst us, this is a big message for you for getting something done with writing that has to do with life lessons that you've done. But again, take it how it resonates. If that's not a message for you, I do know that there are a couple people that are writers that watch this. So that's for those of us that resonate with that. But it is also an energy of just making sure that you're propelling the action forward, and writing something down in a journal and reflecting on past lessons might be a part of getting yourself motivated to move forward. Okay, so I would like to point out that this week had 3 major arcana cards. We're not even into the weekend yet, but I just want to pause and say that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are all major arcana, which means that there's a lot of fate at play. We also have the major astrology going on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it's like, anytime those things are happening, there's definitely an element of fate being like, hey, you have goals, you have dreams, and we want to get you there. So we're going to push you at the door. Like, we're just going to give you a little boost that direction. And that's what this week is going to feel like. So please use it to your advantage, because if you try to fight against the push of fate, it gets really uncomfortable. Then we can fall into depressions and self-sabotage and all kinds of things like that. So you might as well just take the hints. If an opportunity shows up at your door, especially on Tuesday when the opportunity and expansion planet is lining up with the sun, reflect upon it, consider it. If you're the type of person that automatically defaults to a no, do not default to no this week. Like, you don't have to immediately yes and it, improv style, but you do have to consider yes anding it. And I would say by the end of the week, definitely consider answering, because these feel like they are kind of like of the moment opportunities. But yeah, just see what happens. Like, if it's not something that's gonna, again, we are being mindful of not tying ourselves permanently in contracts to people, especially on Thursday. But like, if it's something that's not a really high stakes choice, just say yes and see where it leads you, because you never know. Okay, moving into Saturday, our 6:57 a.m. astrology is Mercury trine Neptune. So in the morning hours on Saturday, we have the planet of communication with a little kiss of luck landing with the planet of our dreams. So communication and dreams coming through. So I think we're seeing that bleed over from Friday's energy of like using Mercury to reflect upon our lessons to really kind of daydream about where we can go next and communicate those things in some way, whether it be communicating them to the outside world with an intention setting or a mission statement, or just writing them down in a journal, writing them down on a to-do list. There's definitely an element of making sure that we do not forget these things. So writing feels really big for the end of the week. Even if you're not a writer, like getting things on paper feels really big. The energy of the day from our card is the 9 of Wands reversed. So 9 of Wands I always see as like you're almost to the top of the stairs. This could be read as you think you're to the top of the stairs and you're not quite. But again, I get the same essence to the message, and that you are closer than it would seem. So like it could be that on Saturday you thought you were going to have hit a goal and then that falls through. And then you kind of get into the mentality that we need to be reminded of 9 of Wands, and that if you're walking up a staircase blindfolded, you don't know how close you are to the top. So this almost feels like it was like a false start. Like it's like on Saturday, like something we thought was going to come through and we were pretty certain about it doesn't come through. And then we have to again be reminded, but like, don't give up. Don't give up. You're still almost there. Or I do want to say that there is a really beautiful thing that I shared in my Instagram stories from a content creator that I will try to remember to post below, because the name is not going to come to my head off the top of my head. But she had a beautiful perspective on if you're looking at the world around you right now and it seems like we're cooked, I give up, I don't want to do this anymore. And she was speaking from a perspective as a trained doula to help people give birth. And she talks about, and she does it so much more eloquently, so I'll gloss over it and then I'll link it below. But she talks about how there's a point in everyone's birth experience, almost universally, to the point that they train doulas about it, that at the end of the first stage of birth, they hit a wall and they almost always say, I can't do this. And that's actually when I'm going to get teary-eyed, because that's what Cancers do when something gets really inspirational or emotional. That's when the actual trained doulas know that the birth is about to happen, because that is the sign. That is like what everyone experiences right before it starts to get like the action starts to really move forward and you start to get to the goal that much quicker. And so it's just this beautiful kind of like beautiful message for everything, this metaphor for everything, that like when we think that we don't have anything left to give, that's usually when we need one last push to get what we want. So that's what this 9 of Wands, especially coming through reverse, is telling us. Like whether or not you find a disappointment happening on Saturday, there's some element of we need to remember that when you're ready to give up, that's usually when you need just one last push and you'll be there. So that is Saturday. Sunday, we have Mercury opposite Pluto. So lots of stuff happening with the planet of communication this week. So from the time that Mercury goes into Leo on Thursday, every single day has something to do with Mercury. So from Thursday on, lock down whatever form of communication resonates for you. And Mercury opposite Pluto on Sunday is telling us that communication and big world change feels in opposition. And this is starting really early in the morning, Central Standard Time, 2:57 a.m. So for those of you on the Pacific Coast, it's technically the day before or the night before. But we're talking about a difficulty communicating what we want to change in the world. So while we are communicating and writing down a lot of stuff, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I encourage you to keep some of the stuff you're feeling called to communicate to yourself. Still write it down because it might be important later, but it doesn't feel like the best energy for the outside world to be ready for the change that you're pitching, if that makes sense. But it is a great energy to visualize this future change that you want to see in the world. Because the Three of Wands is about standing on the shore, having the perspective that you need, and seeing your ship is about to come in, and daydreaming about what it is that you're going to get from that manifestation. So even though Mercury's in Leo on Sunday, maybe don't be quite as ostentatious, quite as boisterous. I don't know where that accent came from. Try not to be quite as out there with your communication style. Keep it inward with the intention that eventually that you can communicate it outward. So if you've got a mission statement for how you personally want to change the world, spend Sunday working on it, daydreaming about it, visualizing what that looks like, and then know that the time to share it with outside world people is going to come along. It just may not be on Sunday. And that may also be not only because the outside world's not ready for it, but because you're going to need to go through some experiences to tweak it, to make it really authentic to you. So this is like first draft energy. You don't want to show your first draft to people. Like, get the first draft, vomit it onto the page, and then go back and like revise and review as things get clearer. And then, maybe you show the second or third draft to someone that you really care about. And then like the more that you develop it, the wider that reach can be. It's a beautiful metaphor for that. Okay, so that is our week. Again, overall, astrologically, a positive week. Cards are saying fate's on our side, pushing us forward. So if you got a goal, go towards that goal. Try not to be too clingy to things. Try to create that balance of dreaming and doing. And then whatever your area of your chart Cancer is in, really kind of take stock about what's happening there, because there's a lot of energy moving around and you can use it to your advantage. With that in mind, this is the point of the reading that I do a personalized reading. So if you're new here, anyone who is a paid either monthly or annual subscriber on my Substack, which is $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, gets entered into all of my readings that I do, all of these drawings that I do for these readings. And then if you're not ready to make that commitment, there's a link below or a couple links below that you can just drop me a one-time tip for the week, and you'll get entered into next week's reading and be a part of the drawing. We have a very small pool that we're drawing from today, because every week that someone wins, if they're a subscriber and they're in all of the readings, they do skip the next week. So if you won last week, you're not going to be in this drawing, but you'll be in next week's drawing automatically. So very few people that we're spinning here. Good luck to all of you, and we'll see who wins. Oh, I've got mine on grayscale. It's not quite as impressive when I do that, but it does keep me off my phone. So our winner of this week's personal reading is Caitlin. I think that feels well spaced. I don't think Caitlin's won in a couple weeks, so that's good. But as you see, we have a smaller pool that we're pulling from. If you become a paid subscriber now, there's a very good chance you're going to win a lot of personal readings in the next couple weeks. So until this channel starts to take off, it's newer. Now is the time to get in and get a lot of free readings. So Caitlin, I feel called to use the deck that we used for the week. So we're going to use the Modern Witch Tarot, and we're going to do a past, present, future. Again, I always go into these readings just trusting that the energy that's supposed to come forward is going to come forward. And I can kind of tell from the cards what it is that we're talking about, or you can tell from your intuition what it is that we're talking about. I'm going to do a couple extra shuffles, I feel like. So you can probably hear a little thudding around on the table with the microphone. But if you feel called to stick around for this, even if you're not Caitlin, a lot of times the energy of the collective kind of bleeds into these individual readings, because obviously Caitlin's a part of the collective as well. So you might find that you relate to something in the next couple of cards. So feel free to stick around if it calls to you. And if not, Caitlin, your reading is going to start with a past card that almost wanted to come out. Also, I got a little catch in my throat there. So I feel like the communication energy of this week is going to be really valuable and important to you, because, I feel like I want to take a sip of water, because it was almost like I choked. Almost choked on my words, which energetically could be a sign that you're kind of choking something back that you need to communicate. Okay, so Past card, 10 of Cups. Oh, what a lovely energy to start with. And from knowing stories from your life, this is very fitting. It is very much you've established a community, a family unit, a house of love. This is very much wishes fulfilled, especially in regards to love, creativity, and your closest, most intimate relationships. So it is kind of the happy family card, not quite as much as the Ten of Pentacles is, but it's definitely an energy of playfulness and blessings. And I mean, the metaphor that I'm getting right now is like a lovely day at the park. Like this feels like a very simple, grounded energy of blessings and community. And then it's like just like the perfect day of like great weather, being outside for just around on time, being around all the people that you love, having fun, being playful, not having any responsibilities. This is the goal. And because it's in the recent past, it seems that you've, as much as any of us can, achieved that. So congratulations. And then the present card is coming through with the Eight of Pentacles. So as you've got the support system in place, there is something in probably your money, career, sort of like life project part of your life that you are being called to kind of not go back to the drawing board, but that is a phrase that wants to come forward here. So that might be something that resonates. It's not like a complete restart of something is what I'm saying, but back to the drawing board is coming to me because it actually is a person at a drawing board. This is an energy of becoming an expert in your craft, whatever that craft might be. And this could be actual career based, or it could be a home project because pentacles are very much at home as well. So if you've got something that's kind of pulling to you as far as home improvements or decor goes or anything like that you've been kind of considering or that you've even already been working on, this is telling you to like keep chugging along at something that you may not feel like you're the best at just yet. Like practice makes perfect is the energy of the Eight of Pentacles. And so like just keep coming back to the drawing board, keep trying it again, keep doing it better. Like if it is a home improvement project, it could be that like you painted a wall a color that you're like, now that I see it, I don't know that I like that color. And it's like, okay, cool. Like go back to the beginning and like go ahead and paint it another color, like get it right. And trust that along the way, you're getting better at it, if that makes sense. And again, it could be career related as well, but for some reason, I'm getting home improvement stuff. The future card is the Two of Swords. So I think you're currently being called to recognize this community support that you have and become better at something that you've been working on. Because in the near future, there is a bit of a stalled energy coming into play that you're going to want to fall back on these habits and patterns that you've established and the support system that you've established. So Two of Swords is often like you're caught between a rock and a hard place. It doesn't feel like you can go forward because you can't see the situation clearly. So this person is blindfolded. However, they also hold both the swords. So like you're always still in control, and that's usually the message behind the swords cards is it's usually stuff that's going on in our head. So we have control over the situation, even if it doesn't feel like it. We just can't quite see it clearly enough. So I think in the near future, you're going to encounter a situation that it feels like there's no right answer and you're not quite sure what direction you want to go. And there could be a little bit of conflict. It could be an interpersonal conflict within a relationship, or it could just be like a circumstance, a situation that you're like, I don't know which one of these options seems better. And quite frankly, a lot of times with the Two of Swords, neither of them seems good. Two of Wands, both options seem great and you don't know one to pick. Two of Swords, it's like neither one of these is really calling to me. And that's usually a sign to one, wait, because maybe you don't have all the information yet. And two, seek a different perspective on both of the situations in front of you, because maybe you're just being too negative about them. And also, like maybe there's a third situation that you hadn't thought of, that you hadn't seen because you were blindfolded. So I think that these first two cards came up to tell you that these are the things that are going to support you through this decision-making, stalled action, sort of conflicted process. So know that you have a community of support that's always surrounding you, no matter what you choose. You've got the time, you've got the space, they're there for you. And know that whatever it is the present moment is calling you to become better at, that's somehow going to help with this as well. So if it is a home improvement project, I could see it being that like making your home the best that it can be and getting through whatever it is that you're working on there is going to make it less stressful when you encounter this situation because you're not dealing with whatever this is as well. Like you've already become an expert at that. Or it could be you're becoming an expert at handling conflict and resolving situations. And maybe there's a conflict that comes up at work or amongst people in your family or your community that you're called to now use this expertise for. Ooh, that feels like that might resonate as well. So there might be a little twofold with this Eight of Pentacles. It might be that you are doing some sort of renovation, but you also might be getting better at resolving conflict with the people around you. And maybe the home improvement project is triggering that. Like maybe that's how you learn that lesson. But that does feel like it's really coming forward strong all of a sudden, that like this could be about being stuck between a rock and a hard place because there are people around you fighting that you then need to learn how to resolve the conflict for and like kind of coach them through it or like be the peacemaker or whatever. And again, the lesson is still that if neither of the options seems good, it's either about a shift in perspective around those options or there's a third option that you haven't thought of. So open your eyes to the different possibilities. Whew, let's see what's underneath the deck. We got the Page of Wands. I flipped it upside down. So this does reflect a little bit of internal reflection on your spirituality and your own spiritual practice. So I think if you have meditation, journaling, talk therapy, any of those things that kind of help you feel more aligned with your inner self, that is going to help you through this entire process. So I hope that reading served you well, Caitlin, and as well as anyone else who watched. And anyone who watched until the end, have a beautiful, expansive, maybe even lucky Jupiter into Cancer, Cancer new moon, beautiful last full week of June.